Welcome back. For this session, we have a case study of automation, test automation in action. And our presenter is David Wall, who is a director at Planet Payments, and he's joining us from Galway in Ireland. Thank you very much, David.
Hi, Matthew.
Yes, David is going to talk a little bit about the transition to automation at Planet Payments and tell us a little bit more about Planet Payments and also its partnership with Tricentis, which is one of our sponsors for the event today. And David is indeed a customer of Tricentis. David, I'm going to leave it to you to tell us a little bit more about yourself and
Okay, so let me get the screen share going, and then I'll get the presentation into presentation mode. So hopefully you're all seeing a screen with Planet on it. So a little bit about Planet Payments, about me first of all. So my name is David Wall. I've been a tax-free QA director for Planet for over 2 years, and nearly 2.5 years. Before that, I worked in the world of lotteries, helping to launch lotteries around the world. My responsibilities during that time would have been around IT and operations. So I oversaw all the software development and testing. And in all businesses, testing is a key element, and launching lotteries heightened the importance of testing. You only get one shot. A failed lottery launch means sales are unlikely to reach predicted levels. However, today I'm going to talk about my Planet experience of introducing automated testing, the process I followed to select the automated framework, how we landed on Tosca from Tricentis, and how we fared. So firstly, an overview of Planet. Launched in 1986 as Fintrax, the company has been growing rapidly through acquisitions and expansion into new markets. The most recent acquisition was made last year and was a UK payments company called 3C, which opened up new verticals in the parking and hospitality sectors. So Planet has essentially two sides to the business. A suite of payments products to enable merchants to accept payments in store and online. And in 2019, we also got our own acquiring license. And then we have a suite of tax-free products to help shoppers around the world claim back the VAT on goods bought abroad. So as you can imagine, the tax-free side of the business has been heavily impacted by the pandemic, but it has offered an opportunity for us to accelerate our planned digital transformation project. So it's the tax-free side I'll be concentrating on today, although some aspects also apply to the payments side. So our tax-free business, the markers here reflect the size of tax-free business before the pandemic. We're in 31 markets around the world with 16,000 partners and over 50,000 merchants that have signed up for our tax-free issuing products. We generate over 13 million vouchers a year, and we've 560 refund points where shoppers can get their refund after the customs check, or increasingly, in a number of cases, you can now get your refund before you even reach the airport. So we have a core digital platform. It's based around the products we sell, really the product groupings. So we work in an agile methodology, and the groups largely represent the streams that the teams are aligned under. Each stream will have a product manager, product owner, scrum master, 5 or 6 developers, and 2 QA. So let's look at the product groupings. In space form, issuing involves a merchant printing a tax-free voucher and handing it to a customer. However, in a lot of countries, the form has to be manually stamped at the airport by the customs authorities and then returned back to Planet for refunds processing. But increasingly, customs authorities are moving to online registration, and the requirement for paper vouchers is reducing. In 2018, Planet introduced a new suite of products based upon the OutSystems low-code platform, where a QR code replaces the physical voucher. Validation involves either a manual custom stamp or more robustly a digital stamp. Where our purchase has been registered with the customs, they can now apply a digital stamp based on risk and fraud rules, and the shopper no longer needs to visit the customs at the airport. And then refunding is the process of giving the shopper their refund, either in cash or to a credit card, or increasingly to digital wallets such as WeChat and Alipay. Using a credit card guarantee, shoppers can even receive their refund before they reach the airport, either at an in-store location or city centre refund points. And the shopper access products allow shoppers to track the refund, and tour guides product helps us to increase the loyalty to the Planet brand. So as you can see, there's a diverse set of products available across web, mobile, and desktop, which does stretch the QA commitment. So what was the quality assurance problem in Planet? Well, when I arrived at Planet, all testing was manual. The team of 14 were conducting manual functional tests, then conducting a huge regression test that sometimes took over 10 days to complete and involved over 2,000 tests. Although the time for regression testing was a big concern, I was equally concerned about the repetitive nature of the effort, which can lead to a lack of focus and sometimes a lack of interest in what the teams were doing. I could see there had been previous attempts at automation. There was a folder with Selenium scripts created by a tester who had since left. There was a lapsed license for an automated test tool that apparently had been installed but never followed up. I'd also see that some of the testers had the word automation in their titles, and it appeared that they'd been hired on the basis of doing test automation, but had quickly been dragged into the day-to-day work. The team seemed busy all the time, and I wondered how an automation tool could be introduced successfully. It was no time to train and learn. So given all that, where do you start? Well, for the sake of brevity, I've outlined the first 3 steps here. One, I had to raise a business case. I had to raise a business case to support the introduction of automation, why we needed automation and the benefits of automation, and also to get some funds to support a proof of concept. There's a plan in the business case, steps to getting automated, and creating some goals and timelines. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to select an automated framework within 3 months. I want to get a base set of tests for each stream created by the end of 2019. And I wanted the whole team trained on the new automation program by the end of 2019. The next step was to dedicate a resource. It was obvious to me that trying to achieve test automation could not be done part-time. It needed to dedicate a resource to drive the project on a daily basis. So I restructured the QA streams to free up my lead QA, who incidentally was one of those people who was hired with automation in his title. And then I ran a proof of concept, which is probably the key to the presentation. I ran a proof of concept selected automation framework. The selection of the right tool would define our success, and it had to be right for the company, and equally it had to be right for the team. So the basis of the proof of concept is outside the next few slides. Firstly, let me say that this was a learning exercise for me too. I had no in-depth knowledge of tools, but I knew that my preference would be for a comprehensive solution to avoid testers jumping around, different test tools depending on the type of test involved. So from a company point of view, a one-size-fits-all tool would be ideal. As we test websites, desktop apps, APIs, and databases, and the payments team also tests file formats and file transfers and content. So I felt the sort that one tool would help in maintaining test scripts and test results in one place. Speed of execution was more concerned about how long it would take to develop the automation. In other words, from the time you got a set of requirements to have a running automated test case. And I had a requirement to suit non-programmers, which might be unique to Planet, but I don't think it is. I had a large group of testers who delighted in the challenge of creating test cases that exercise the application, but they had no coding experience and really no interest in coding. So I was naturally concerned that a tool that required extensive coding skills would put a lot of them off and result in testers, be more worried about their code syntax than be worried about the purpose of the test case. And price is obviously always a consideration, but I felt if a tool could support the return on investment, it shouldn't be ruled out. I do wonder sometimes about companies who spend millions on development tools, but seem to want free test tools. To me, an investment in testing is an investment in quality and ultimately customer satisfaction. So the second part was to execute the proof of concept. So given that we had no licenses or tools installed, we used a third party to help conduct the proof of concept. We wanted a comparison with an integrated framework using open source tools versus an enterprise-wide framework. that would give us everything under the hood. So we gave them an existing end-to-end test case that involved UIs and databases, and we asked them to automate it in each of the different frameworks. So the first framework that was proposed was a next-gen framework, and this is largely made of open source tools that are freely available on the market. It shows a scripted automation framework, gathered together listeners, utilities, and wrappers, and all on top of a Selenium grid. As you can see, it looks complex, but of course, we would only deploy the elements that we required, and we could pick the right tools for our requirements. And the ability to mix and match was attractive to some degree, has enabled us to adopt the framework as new tools came onto the market. The Tosca picture looks a lot clearer. It's a model-based automated framework and a self-contained architecture for the requirements and the test cases and the test data and the test execution results. Though, on our initial view, we had concerns about how Tosca would handle all the different requirements in one framework. We had seen the multiple elements, utilities, and tools that were available to us in the next generation framework, and we thought that maybe Tosca would limit us in what we could do, but we went ahead with the proof of concept, and the results we got actually surprised us a little bit. And this is actually one of the results tables that were produced as part of the testing output. So you can see that, the different factors down the left-hand side, an end-to-end solution, web, mobile, desktop API, user-friendly and need for scripting, agile ready, because we do see CI/CD as the future, licensing cost, obviously cross-programming language support, the maintenance costs of the framework and the scripts, cross-platform support, native support for packaged applications, tutorial support material documentation, and parallel execution. And there were other factors that were considered at the time, but these are the ones that were reported upon as part of the proof of concept. And the ones I think that we probably need to focus on are the user-friendly and need for scripting, where we rated the sort of open source Selenium-based solution as not as good as the Tosca scriptless model-based. And in fact, when we gave them the end-to-end test case, we asked them to report back on the effort required to get it running from scratch in the open source solution as opposed to the Tosca solution. And we were very, very surprised to see that it took 50% more effort in the Selenium solution. And we also inspected the code afterwards, and it was very complex, and it became obvious to us that if this was one test case, when we started multiplying that into the thousands, we could have a very, very complex coding environment. And with that complexity would come a requirement for more specialist automation engineers whose job mainly would be to maintain the framework and make sure it's consistent, rather than actually being the people who wrote test cases on a day-to-day basis. So that in itself kind of negated the cost, the cost of a Tosca solution. Tosca is not the cheapest solution on the market, but obviously, if we need more people on the open source side to keep things up and running, then the two will balance each other out. So the user friendliness also replayed back to me the impact on the team I currently had, who weren't coders, and we felt that looking at the way Tosca worked and the model-based architecture of Tosca, it was certainly clear to us that the team would be able to pick that up a lot quicker, and it would really enable the team to have one repository for all the test scripts, and they could be able to run end-to-end tests in each of their elements as they needed to by reusing components from the other from the other areas. So the agility of Tosca also impressed us after our initial reservations. It was able to answer all the questions and that we had asked about it, and the suite of related tools that we could see, such as OSV for service virtualization, Qtest. We could see that offered us a pathway forward to really, rewriting the way we did testing at the moment, and gave us a future. Excuse me, I'm just going to take a drink of water. So, so the results, I summarized results there. We found the integrated solution was 1.5 times longer, with a complex set of tools. Tosca offered us faster implementation, and there was an impressive suite of products. So we made a decision, and we selected Tosca from Tricentis. So after the proof of concept, then back to the plan. So the next step of the plan was to get people trained on the product, and there is a Tosca training school from Tricentis, which has, this is a section of the course, there's about nine or 10 courses in total. At the time we got the product, we included the training as part of the package we did, but these courses are now all free, so you can do them online at any time. And really the first main course there, Automated Specialist 1, is sufficient to get people up and running in the Tosca platform, particularly from a UI viewpoint. And AS2 introduces APIs and a little bit more complexity, but our goal was to get everybody to complete the AS1 while at the same time doing their day-to-day work. So as part of the Agile methodology, I set up a set of enablers into the system that would be included in the sprint planning. And therefore that would give the team time within the sprints to do the Tosca training. And that's an important reflection. If we hadn't done that, it would have been very hard for the team to find time outside their normal day-to-day work to get the automation training done. And I did mention that back in the early slides that the team appeared to be very busy. So I needed to make time for it, and I did it using the Agile methodology and using enablers. And then we used to get people through, I think there's about 12 modules in Application Specialist 1. And we used to get people to report in the weekly meetings how they were getting on and what modules they were at. So a little bit of competition, but it worked quite well. And everybody got the training done in the allowed time. The next step was to start automating the regression pack. So as I mentioned earlier, we had a suite of over 2,000 tests that had to be automated. And again, the challenge was, how do I get these automated while the team are still busy doing day-to-day work? So I took the decision that we'd employ a third-party company to help us develop 6 to 8 tests in each of the different streams. So the advantage of that was that a lot of the initial heavy work around mapping screens and all the labels and the objects on the screen would be done by this third-party company, and they would take a number of the existing test cases and get those automated and get those running. So we signed a sequence of statements of work with this company, one for each stream, and we would give them videos of the existing tests. They would automate them for us in Tosca. They would put them on our platform, and when we were happy that they were running properly, we would sign off the statement of work and we'd move on to the next stream. So during this time frame, and in 2019, we had the teams doing their training on Tosca, and we had the third party beginning to deliver the base sets of automated tests into the team, so they could then take ownership of them, and they would then be able to take up what's been already there, give themselves a head start really, and then take ownership of those test cases and then expand upon them. So the approach we took was to look at each stream and look at the current set of tests in the regression test pack. decide which ones are really going to remain manual, because you're always going to have a certain element of manual testing when you talk about mobile devices and pushing buttons and screen presentations, and which ones were automated candidates. So the automated candidates were then the ones that the teams started to take on board in 2020. And again, we had enablers in the sprints for the teams to get a day or two each sprint to be able to work on just automation and getting the regression packs automated. And some teams worked faster than others, but everybody, eventually got up to speed, and we got our automation underway. So how do we do? Well, we did quite well, actually. So the graph on the top left shows the progress during 2020, which was achieved alongside the day-to-day work of the team. As I said, we did it by introducing enablers into the sprints. Our goal was to reduce regression testing from 10 days to 5 by the November release. So we had 6 releases in the year, and the November release was release number 5. And we could see progress. I could see progress throughout the year as we saw, where previously the regression testing might spill over to the 10-day, it started to, be always under 10 days and 9 days and 8 days. And we did achieve the goal of running regression testing in 5 days in that 5th release in November in 2020. So that was a really, really great achievement for the team. From a planning viewpoint, regression testing was still planned for 10 days. So it also gave us some more time at the end of regression testing to continue on and try and finish out any tests that still had to be automated. So regression testing reduced from 10 plus days to under 5. And then, a back of a fag packet calculation shows that if you save 5 days for a team of 30 developers, that would include the testers, over 6 releases in the year, the return on investment is nearly €750,000. So although Tosca is not the cheapest product in the market, Planet is achieving significant savings per year, which will only increase as we move towards a CI/CD environment and become truly fully automated. We've also integrated Tosca into the Azure DevOps pipeline for some products. So we now have a suite of automated tests being run automatically every time a new build of that product is delivered into the DevOps environment. And obviously, the end game is to get all products in there and to have those tests running for every product as part of a continuous integration program. We've also started the investigation into use of the orchestrated service virtualization tool, OSV, to stub some of our customs interfaces so that we can continue to test when the services are down, which can be quite frequent with the test systems from customs because they don't pay the same level of attention to them. And also we find that some functions that are available in the custom systems in production, they haven't put them into test. So we can't test those functions on the test system. So using the service virtualization tool, which uses all those existing tests that we've already written, means that we can test those when those functions aren't there. And it also fits neatly into our digital transformation program, which is going to introduce a new set of APIs into the system. And when using the OSV product, we'll be able to start testing before development is complete, because we'll be able to, with the specifications, we'll be able to start studying those interfaces and playing the responses back to ourselves. Planet has also set up a new performance management team outside of QA, but they are going to look at using Tosca Flood as one of their key tools. And Tosca Flood, again, will enable the performance team to take the base end-to-end tests or login tests or refund tests that we've already created in the QA environment and bring those into Tosca Flood and use those as part of the performance testing. So they don't have to start rewriting the tests, and they don't have to understand all the functionality because the hard work has already been done in Tosca by the QA team. So there are other the other products we're looking at, Q-Test is only part of the suite, which we're going to take a look at this year. But we have been more than delighted with the products and the services that we're getting from Tricentis as part of this deal, and it has transformed the way testing has been done in Planet. So that's my story of automation in Planet, and I'm happy now to take any questions that people may have.
Well, thank you, David. If you don't mind, stop ceasing the sharing so that our viewers can see you fully on the screen. Thank you for that. It was a very concise and detailed presentation of your decision process and where you are now. You talked about future-proofing and being ready for service virtualization, which I thought was particularly interesting. Can you tell me how that future-proofing works and how far you want to go and how far you're looking ahead in terms of service virtualization? I mean, are you looking, for example, at completely synthesizing all your data? You gave the example of an integration with customs, but of course that's one
that's only one aspect of it. Yeah. I mean, the digital transformation program is really going to introduce a set of APIs into each of the streams that anybody can consume, but each stream will offer its own set of APIs, and obviously using service virtualization means that we can start testing before those APIs are there. And I also see it being used possibly in moving to contract testing, where teams can test their APIs before the other APIs are ready, but we can be working in parallel across all the different products to make sure that any new feature works across all at the same time. So it's quite interesting for us, and I like the idea that with the Tosca product you can set it up so that all the API calls are going to a production system or a test system, but you can set specific parameters in the API fields and say, actually, if I see this in the field, so I see the name test in the surname, I'm going to send back this response. So it doesn't mean you turn it on, you turn it off. You can set it up to work normally most of the time, but only return specific responses when you send a specific data.
Okay. Only a couple of minutes left, but the other question I wanted to ask you was about the ROI, the metrics for the benefits that you've got from your investment in Tosca, and of course you've calculated those in, which is the industry standard in terms of person hours.
Yes.
What about the quality of?
So obviously, I'm looking at the escape bugs. So what are we missing? And one of what's on the roadmap for this year is that to date we've been taking the existing regression testing packs and we've been automating them and reporting on the percentages: 60% done, 70% done, 80% done. The team are tasked this year with actually putting the product requirements into Tosca, so listing all the requirements of the products, and we'll work with the product owners and the product managers to make sure that that list of requirements in Tosca is correct, and then we'll map the test cases to those requirements. So this year we'll move away from reporting on percentage of regression tests to percentage of requirements coverage, and I think that's a big step forward. So we can identify if we have any gaps in our testing, and we can make sure that all new features are captured automatically as requirements in Tosca, and we develop test cases for them.
And in terms of the percentage of automation you've achieved, where are you on the curve, and what's
we have two systems. We have what people might call the existing product set. We have a new suite based upon the load code platform. So on the existing product, we're over 90%. On the new suite, we're about 67%. So we're working to bring that up. It's a resource issue at the moment, which will get resolved.
Okay, good. Well, thank you very much. We're right on schedule, David. So thank you.
Okay.
And well done for getting through a very detailed presentation right on schedule. We do appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Our next presentation, if you return to your timelines, please, and look for it, starting at 3:15 London time. My colleague Justin Trenner is in conversation with Ana Paula Milani from Cielo, which is the largest credit card company in Brazil. And she is going to talk about how Cielo benchmarks software quality. Thank you very much, David. I hope we'll be speaking soon.
All right. Thank you. Bye.